The movement started as a tree planting campaign. That's how we enter into communities. But it is a little more than just the planting of trees. It's planting of ideas. It's giving people a reason why they should stand for their rights. It's giving them reasons why they should protect their environmental rights, and giving them reason why they should protect their women's rights.
What I know is my parents raised me in an environment that did not give reasons for fear or uncertainty. Instead, there were many reasons to dream, to be creative, and to use my imagination. As I grew older, I learned that we can convince ourselves and our children, and if we're leaders, we can convince our citizens that we are in danger, either from what people might do to us or what we might do to ourselves. On Mr. Nayland's farm, people from many communities worked, including Luos, Kipsigis, and Kikuyus, who without the economic and labor system the British introduced, would not have lived in proximity to each other. Each community kept the category of jobs assigned to it. Kikuyus worked in the fields, Luos labored around the homestead as domestic servants, and Kipsigis took care of the livestock and milking. The communities also lived separately, which of course was deliberate. It was probably the master's way of making sure that everybody kept to their roles and remained apart. These ethnic biases, many of which were planted early in one's childhood, became amplified and embraced by the national political rhetoric. They are still used today to divide Kenyans from one another. Like many towns in colonial Kenya, Nakuru at that time was segregated, with separate areas for Europeans, Indians, and Africans. The European section was on the slopes of the ridge overlooking the lowlands. The Indians occupied the middle ground on the hill. About 35,000 Indians were brought by the British to Kenya in the 1890s as low-wage laborers to build the Kenya-Uganda Railroad. The Indian immigrants also brought with them their traditional foods and cuisine, and successfully introduced them to the local populations. Today, many new diseases associated with nutrition find their roots in this sudden change in people's diets, which for many communities, including Kikuyus, had been largely maize, millet, roots, beans, sugarcane, and green vegetables. It was common for older men and women anticipating their passing on to gather their families around them, bless them, declare their will, and appoint the administrator of their estate, who was often their firstborn son. In those days, the prevailing belief was that after death, rather than go either to heaven or hell as Christians believe, the newly departed joined the spirit world of their ancestors. May you sleep where there is rain and dew, was the blessing given when someone was laid to rest. I spent 4 years at Cecilia's and grew very fond of many of the sisters who helped shape my life there. One of the nuns, however, was quite different. Most of the sisters were relatively slim and tall, at least to me as a young girl. But this one was an exception. A strongly built nun who had come to Kenya from South Africa called Sister Christiana. The school did not have the services of a post office, so if you wrote or received a letter, it had to go through a nun, and that sister more often than not was Sister Christiana. On one occasion, A girl wrote a letter to a friend in which she included this piece of news. Here in St. Cecilia's, we are fine, still eating fire. Sister Christiana read the letter and was appalled and angry. The girl had lied and scandalized the school. That evening, in the dining hall, all of the girls had food on their plates, except the girl who had written the letter. On her plate she found pieces of charcoal. After we had said grace and sat down to eat, Sister Christiana explained that the girl had told a lie, that the nuns were feeding us fire. So that is fire, she thundered at the girl. Eat. Well, we could barely stifle our laughs. Even the girl herself found it funny. Quite obviously, Sister Christiana had missed a very important point. The girl in her letter had taken a Kikuyu saying, "No turaria mwaki," and given a literal translation into English. We continue to eat fire is a Kikuyu colloquialism meaning we are having a great time. Many schools emphasize that students must speak English at all times, even during holidays. A common practice to ensure that students kept pressure on one another was to require those students who were found using a language other than English to wear a button known as a monitor. It was sometimes inscribed with phrases in English such as, "I am stupid," "I was caught speaking my mother's language." In retrospect, I can see that this introduced us to the world of undermining our self-confidence. I am very glad I did not lose my desire or ability to speak Kikuyu, because this helped ensure that a gap did not open between my parents and me, as it has for some other children for whom education became synonymous with westernization.
We are constantly being bombarded by problems that we face, and sometimes we can get completely overwhelmed. The story of the hummingbird is about this huge forest being consumed by a fire. All the animals in the forest come out and they are transfixed as they watch the forest burning, and they feel very overwhelmed, very powerless, except this little hummingbird. It says, "I'm going to do something about the fire." So it flies to the nearest stream, takes a drop of water, and puts it on the fire and goes up and down, up and down, up and down, as fast as it can. In the meantime, all the other animals, much bigger animals like the elephant with a big trunk, could bring much more water. They are standing there helpless, and they are saying to the hummingbird, "What do you think you can do? You're too little. This fire is too big. Your wings are too little. And you're big, so small. You can only bring a small drop of water at a time." But as they continue to discourage it, it turns to them without wasting any time and tells them, "I am doing the best I can." And that, to me, is what all of us should do. We should always feel like a hummingbird. I may feel insignificant, but I certainly don't want to be like the animals watching as the planet goes down the drain. I will be a hummingbird. I will do the best